So, Lance, how might someone get into the games industry? And is that changing in any way as the years go on?
That's a good question. That's a tough one. I'd say, yeah, no, it's always been changing. And that is the challenge. And for some people, kind of an enticement to what the industry is all about. Like it's exciting. Everyone plays games. And, in our younger days, it's part of the real world we experience that we can relate to adults with. So, on one hand, it's a universal. Everyone kind of knows a little bit about games when you're growing up and you get to the age where you start to make decisions about colleges, majors, career, and it's enticing. It's something you've already experienced. It's a career that you can imagine maybe. The challenge that poses is that it attracts a lot of people.
Mm,
There are so many people trying to get into the industry, and there's limited opportunity. So I've heard a lot of like authors, really famous story authors, who will like tongue in cheek warn interested people about like, listen, if you really want to write, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be an actor, um, only do it if you have to.
mhm.
Like, this is a hard industry. It's not necessarily a well-paid industry. And I'll caveat all these things. There's exceptions, of course, but a lot of people want to get into it. Um, it is a cyclical kind of industry. It requires a lot of learning constantly. And because of the high demand and the idea that um, there are various forces at work, some of the trends that you have to keep up with, where publishing companies, a lot of the profit doesn't always go to the development companies, the game development companies. So to get into the industry, there's the first thing to say is that there's different industries. It's not one industry. The first thing to know is that, well, which of the game industries would you be interested in? Do you want to go more on the publishing side? Do you want to develop the games yourself? Are you into esports on the competitive side of games? Are you okay working on, say, casino style games where you're kind of designing games that pass the time real casually, but are really designed to take your money?
Right.
Or do you want to build deep cinematic stories like the things you play on consoles? Or do you want bite sized things that you play on your phone? Any single one of these is truly kind of a different industry. And once you begin specializing in one of those areas, it's not as easy to switch from one to the other.
Mm.
So what I'm going to say is yes, if you want to get in the industry, think about it and ask yourself the hard questions. There's a lot of ways that gaming and the fun aspects of gaming, like storytelling, creating fun interactivity, you can do those things in other areas. But if you really, really want to do games, some of my advice would be start as early as you can, get into the industry, start doing it. Obviously, you have to play games. Authors can kind of get away. We all read, and in school, we've been reading book after book. We're critiquing them. We're trying to understand different styles of stories. We don't have that in school for games, so you kind of have to go through and experience it for yourself. Play
Mhm.
as many games as you can. Try out different genres. Start critiquing with you and your friends the differences in the genres. If you could change a game, what would you change? Um, Start making games for your friends. And games are not always digital. We play sports. Sports are a kind of game. Chess is like a historic game that has survived through the ages. Games are nothing new and they're very human. So games don't always have to be in a digital form that's all packaged up and pretty. My advice is just do it. Get out there and do it. Um, and moving forward, there are now segueing into the industry kind of suggestions. Uh, th- Beyond starting early, beyond playing games, making your own games, you want to seek out practical experience. If you can do internships, if you're in a city that has like an IGDA chapter, which is an international developer, game developer, or IGDA, yeah, Game Developers Association, they have phenomenal events in many major cities. There's game jams. Participate in a game jam. Just show up. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be an artist. And Meet people who are making games, talk to them, ask if you can contribute. Indie games, one of the beauties about the game industry, how's it changing? In the, say, 70s and 80s, you kind of had to be a programmer. Um, Early on, you had to do C programming, maybe C++. And then when you made a game, you'd have to work with a publisher to get it out in the stores. Anyone can make a game now and self-publish.
Mhm.
A lot of the money is going to be going to the marketplaces, which is tough. But anyone in a short period of time can make games. And now AI is kind of like your superpowered teammate. Um, Previously, you would need an artist, you'd need a developer. You're going to need collaboratively to do QAs, to do some market research. You need someone who's probably going to set up maybe databases or infrastructure for launching and supporting a live game, or someone who could package up a game into a CD-ROM or whatever kind of form you want to launch in. There used to be a lot of roles and a lot of expertises that you absolutely needed. With AI and the way that it's already integrated into GitHub and a lot of development environments, a single person with some degree of technical know-how can do the work of two or three people.
Right.
You're still going to need some artistic talent and you're still going to need some technical programming skills because the AI can't do everything on its own. You have to know what you want and know what works and what doesn't. So it's kind of like an assistant. You can direct it. It can do a lot of busy work for you, but you have to know how to program the components.
Okay.
So that's kind of speaking of the technical. Contacts in the industry matter a lot. Once you've built your reputation and built yourself up as a brand, once you've created some games, put it together in a portfolio, something you can share, it's really important to have a style, I guess. If you're coming at it from a design point of view, you want
Mhm.
to build a style, and that might be more casual, more cinematic, like I said. Some people go for platformer 2D arcade style games, and that's their thing. Some people want to go for the more deep immersive stories, and that is its whole entire kind of a style. So like artists who in art school are pushed to define a style that defines them, that makes it easy for the market to understand who they are, and when they're looking to get hired, an employer can be like, okay, I like this person's style, that's what we want for our next project. It becomes some degree of a commodity. Do you have to be adaptive? Do you have to be able to kind of adjust what you do in your style for different games? Yes. But in the industry, because it's cyclical, because a lot of companies will have layoffs, they'll have big projects, they'll ramp up, hire a lot. Like a big movie production, console-based games might take years to produce. And in that time, during the lead-in period and the end period, they're not going to need as many artists and developers, and they're going to lay them off. And they're going to jump to another project at a different company, or if the company is big enough, say like EA, they might move to a completely different team somewhere else. So you have to be able and willing to want to jump from project to project. And
Mhm.
if you have a really strong style, good contacts, and reputation, it makes that easy, um, because you have to kind of plan to be able to jump from company to company or project to project. And that's job security in the games industry is more the ability to get hired rather than the ability to stay at one place
Okay.
for too long. So that was a kind of a whirlwind. It's um, getting
Yeah.
started, biting your teeth off. If you're just learning in elementary school or middle school, use programming languages like Scratch.
Mhm.
Um, Godot is another one that's becoming a fast favorite in 2024 for like a first language for making games. Unity and Unreal are also really great. I would say Unreal is the engine that I'm seeing in the past 2 years. It's become dominant much more than Unity. Unity's changed its licensing, so a lot of game companies are shifting over to to Unreal, and are having trouble finding enough Unreal developers.
Mhm.
So, is it okay to continue? Do
Yeah,
we
I
have
was
time?
gonna say, Lance, your wonderful answer about how to get started
Yeah.
begs a question from me, which we can continue with this post for our audience, or we could if you think it's a longer answer, we can make another post. But it begs the question of where does university level work fit in? College, undergrad, graduate school, and is it almost too late to study gaming in graduate school if you really want to be good at it and successful at it? Do you want to try and answer that here, or should we do it in another post?
I'm happy to keep going, or if you
Let's
want to
go.
just
So, what do you
yeah,
think
let's do it.
about
Okay.
learning about gaming in graduate school, let's say?
So yeah, we're kind of talking about how do you get in the game industry, and now the focus is at that collegiate level.
Mhm.
Maybe you're in undergrad and choosing a major. Maybe you're now in grad school. Is it too late? Is there a point in time where it's hard to shift into the industry? I am an example of someone who didn't start in the games and not, I didn't directly start in the games industry. In high school, I was working in software development. Um, I was at Scholastic doing art production. I was automating the production of art assets for digital encyclopedias and learning apps. Because of that, I had been in this software industry for about 10 years before I switched into the games industry. Meanwhile, I'd gotten a doctorate in educational design.
Right.
For me, that made perfect sense. I'm like, oh my God, the more I learn about education, the more I realize all game design is learning design.
Mhm.
That could be its own topic. I'll save that one, put it to
Okay,
the side.
gotcha.
But collegiately, there are going to be some skills. I'm going to like work, do reverse engineering of this question.
Okay.
What are the skills that are the hardest to come by in the games industry that say are higher paying or where they're more sought after? And technical skills kind of take the cake. They continue to.
Yeah.
Programming skills, absolutely. Engineering skills.
Hmm.
And people are thinking about AI is going to replace a lot of jobs. I do not see AI replacing programming because in order to work with an AI, you have to kind of, it helps to be a programmer. To really get AI to effectively automate and do the work of multiple people, you need AI shepherds,
Right.
people who are half designing the AI, because most generic AI is not specialized to do a cinematic game in a fantasy RPG genre, and it's not going to be specialized in the world you've created and the narrative, say like the Star Wars world. You have to custom build your AI. You might get a package, and there's going to be more APIs for this. The jobs to program games is probably going to shift to program the AI that program the games. Nonetheless, the programming positions and jobs are not going away. They're just going to be a little different, probably more superpowered.
Okay.
Um, Data science. You know, when I was a kid, data science was not a major thing in the game design industry. It is now.
Mhm.
With esports, with mobile games, they are now operating at international levels with massive amounts of users. And the profits from the games are kind of from microtransactional monetization. And you need massive data analysis and behavioral analysis to really understand what's working, what's not, where are the trends. When we want to make decisions about what kind of games or game content to make, how does the data steer us in the direction of what people really want and respond to?
Mhm.
So data analysis is massive. And because data analysis is massive across every industry and programming is also a sought after skill, those two are probably the hardest to find, the highest paid from a skills point of view.